This car has come a long way over the last 3 years. It's kind of hard to believe the state that it's in now, but ultimately it was in that barn 3 years ago, and before that it sat there for 25 years. So yeah, it's pretty crazy and hard to believe. This particular car had the window down on the driver's side when it was stored, and that led to the kind of demise that happened inside the interior. But it also kind of sat through the flood of 97, which is obviously pretty bad. I think it went up to the body molding, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the waterline goes. So yeah, the floor was rotten, the engine was seized, the transmission was seized, the differentials was seized, but that led to what this car has become, or opened the door to, you know, completely throwing out all that kind of stuff and going into the modifications that, you know, we've led to. So it's kind of cool. You can even see the potential that the car sits with even in this state, which is pretty wild. So ultimately, there was an engine swap that I had done many years ago in a Ford Ranger, out of an 86 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. And yeah, I had to actually swap that all into a little Ranger, regular cab short box, which you can see here. And ran that for a couple of years. Ended up modifying it, putting a T3 T4 turbocharger, center mount header, and believe it or not, actually detuning it, which was funny. And then that powertrain kind of made its way into this wagon. So if you want to see more on either one of those, that'll be in my channel, so you can check it out there. But basically, I ended up parting out the wagon, and I had sold the engine and the whole drivetrain setup. And 10 years later, once this Volvo project landed into my lap, I actually tracked down that engine and transmission, and it hadn't been used. It'd been just rotated, and that's about it. So when we swapped it into the Volvo, we basically just drained the fluids and you know, made it work in the car to see if it was even a viable option, to see how it would play out. But the bores look fantastic, and even sounds pretty good here with the 2.5-inch exhaust. That was not stainless 2 years ago. But yeah, so that's with the flap open. Nice taillight, someone should fix that. Anyway, so that was a great year with that whole combo. Having it on the road, that was a feat in itself. And then we kind of started working through all the speed bumps, the hiccups that kind of come with that. But it was fun. There's really nothing wrong with that by any means, and that's what's going to happen on any build. So we obviously had a great time with it. Ended up blowing the head gasket towards the end of the year, which, like, really, the engine sat for that long and we didn't really put anything into it, and all we did is we ended up popping a head gasket. Big whoop. That opened the door to finding a cylinder head that was basically ported and had a bigger cam in it, which led me to get this manifold, which is Beauport center mount header. We went to a different intake, so I ended up building the upper intake and a different fuel rail, which basically created this beast that we've have this year in this combo. It pretty much goes without saying, but this combo makes way more power than the previous year. Now, most of that's going to lead up to, it was detuned, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier. I put a Ranger roller camshaft in it, and that was actually smaller lift and duration than the factory turbo cam, which seems really silly that I did that, but at that time the internet had a lot of forums and it had a lot of guidance that was very misled. I did pause to the pedal again this year. I brought my Audi S4 as well as the Volvo. My dad actually brought his square body truck, which you can obviously see through some of the video and pictures here. Looks really nice. I'm a little envious of the paint job, I'm not gonna lie. I wish the paint on the Volvo looked that nice, but there's something about patina, right? Another modification that we've done to the car was the seats, belts, and seatbelt harness bar. Definitely a nice arrangement in the car. The previous seats, which I think were from a Honda Civic, were just did not fit the style of the car. So this kind of made it a lot nicer. Later on, I actually used those harnesses, and yeah, they're fantastic. They're worth every penny. One of the other things we did is actually that steering wheel. You can see it's actually pushed back. It's got a bit of a taper to it. The car is much easier to drive now. That wheel is actually a little bit bigger than it was last year, so that kind of equates to much better driving experience, let's put it that way. So one of the other things we came across with the car, even in this making more power combo, is the car would plateau. It'd get to a point and it just wouldn't accelerate more. It kind of landed on its face. Now, ultimately that T3, T4 that was in there had a 4.8 exhaust housing, and that was actually starving the engine for exhaust flow, and therefore engine power band would just plateau and you're done. This is what ultimately led to the turbo upgrade. This is a gt3076r with a 6.3 housing, replacing that 4.8 housing of the T3, T4. Now, that really opened up the power band of the engine. It didn't plateau anymore. It was fantastic, except that those exhaust bolts suck. But yeah, so we slapped it on and ran it for a little bit, and what better way to test it than to hit the highway and go out cruising. Put a week on the turbo setup, and then basically we had it out at the car show the following week at the Gonzo Drift and Car Show event. Fantastic event. There will be footage coming up soon. I just need to go through it and post it, so watch the channel for that. But yeah, basically car loves the turbo. One of the best things I did for the car, and really just led to, you know, being able to enjoy the car that much more. You might have noticed this car is actually sitting lower all around, and that was all in conjunction with making it handle better. So that's where the adjustable tie rods came from, or came into. That was the time I put them in, and a narrower tire in the front, the 225s versus the 245s, which really made it drivable and made it reasonable driving on the highway at, you know, 100 kilometers an hour, and led to, you know, saying yes to trips like this, which is a fantastic trip. We made it out to Rydell's charity car show in Grand Forks, North Dakota. That trip was just shy of 400 miles, and that's the furthest the Volvo's been, well, probably in 40 years. Like, definitely over the last, you know, 30 without question. But I don't think that the people were road tripping this car before that. But regardless of which, it was awesome to kind of just see how the car reacted on the highway. We had the laptop with us. We were pulling out fuel because it was pretty rich at the highway speeds where we're getting at, which is not a big deal. You just put it in auto tune and pull out some fuel, and it's happy. There's nothing wrong with that. So it was a great trip. Really enjoyed it. Went with my father, my two boys, and my brother and his family. And yeah, it's definitely something we're not going to forget. It was amazing to just, you know, slow down for a bit and take in the country scenery and hit some small towns. Honestly, the best time I've had in a long time, especially for road trips. Maybe I need to get on more road trips, and that's really the takeaway there more than anything else. But yeah, really enjoyable. I think a lot of people took to the car and enjoyed the Frankenstein-ness of what's going on there. But yeah, they might not like how loud it is. I'm not sure, but whatever. That's part of the game. You get the whole package. It's going to be loud. It's going to be somewhat annoying to some people, and I'm okay with that. They just need to be okay with it too. Pretty cool to actually drive up to the Sonic drive-in now. We don't have those in Manitoba, so just pulling up to a drive-in, super badass in a car that's you know, 6 years old. We also stopped by this old, I guess it's a drive-in as well, called the Kegs in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I think they're still open. They were closed when we were there, but yeah, super cool scenery, and definitely kind of hits that era of you know, 60s and 70s, maybe even 50s, if I got my eras right. But definitely good scenery, and it was cool to check out. At this point, the car is running pretty good. There's not a lot of stress on the car, just some highway miles, not that big of a deal. But those exhaust bolts seem to keep on walking out. I'm not entirely sure how car manufacturers don't have vent windows anymore, because they are awesome, but whatever. This is actually one of the spots where we stopped to tighten up the exhaust manifold, because yeah, we had to. It was annoying, so yeah, a little half-hour pit stop, but not a big deal. So yeah, that whole trip was basically just shy of 400 miles. And the car actually got like 26.3 miles per gallon, which is pretty good, I think. It's better than I thought. Well, for the life of me, I can't get these exhaust header bolts to not come loose.
lock washers. I was going to go to a specific lock washer, but just never really went that way. I have lock washers on them now, but my newest and greatest fix is this. All right, so yeah, I typically try to do what's right by the right products, right? So in this particular case, those are Beaupart header bolts, these ones right here, which is a great, awesome product, except the fact that on this header, you can't get wrench flats on there. There's no room for wrench flats. So I've done it and I've got them tight, but you mess around with it for so long, it's just really not worth it. So I went to this Allen style bolt, which is M10 by I think 25. Actually, see, they're actually longer than these ones, even with that, sure, that lock washer out of there, right? You can kind of see how much longer they are, 2-3 threads ish. So a little bit longer. There's more than enough room in this particular head. That's not an issue. And then I've also drilled the end of this as well. So I'm going to wire tie them to prevent them from coming loose. So yeah, it doesn't seem to matter. I've checked them probably every second or third road trip or drive, let's say, and yeah, they'll be loose, right loose. So anyway, enough with those bolts. Go to better things, make it better, because yeah, sometimes options that people provide are shit. So anyway, should be good now ish. We'll see.
And now it was time to take it to Autocross and see how it did. Obviously, we didn't want to do it before that road trip because I'm a little superstitious. I didn't want to break it before I went. So, sure, let's take it out. Let's see what it does. We built it kind of for this, right? So, let's do it.
Hey, you're good to go.
There's a whole video just on the Autocross of that event, so you can check that out in my channel. The car did really well. Sure, it has a lot of body roll, but that's just, you know, a couple other things we got to address and look at and tweak and modify, make it better. So after Autocross, those exhaust manifold bolts, no longer a thing. Don't have to worry about it. It's fantastic. But periodically, we get a lifter tick. So I'm pretty sure I've got a lifter that's collapsing. And that's kind of what we're going to get into over the winter and kind of look at. At the end of the season, there was actually this event. It was put on by Roughway Motorsports and the Subaru Club, and it was fantastic. It had great weather, awesome venue, awesome people, and the variety of cars was phenomenal. I decided to actually bring both cars to this event too, which, you know, made it a little interesting. But yeah, so we had the Volvo there as well as the S4. I actually hoped that the Volvo would do a little bit better in the two-step or launch control competition, but is what it is. Turns out my tuned out a lot of fuel in that area, so well, you get a lot of noise and not a lot of fire. Thank you for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed a little glimpse into this year with the Volvo. We've definitely had fun doing it, so appreciate the support. Thank you and take care.